Good morning, my beautiful friends. This is your wake up call with Maui Paul. I am Maui Paul, and we are here today to say some nice things about ourselves. We're going to do that with the help of this here I Am deck. And before I get into that, I just want to say thank you to everybody who is sharing this stream. I really appreciate the extended reach that this message gets because of what you guys are doing. So please keep on doing that. Now, I have this I Am deck, and every single card in this entire deck contains an amazing, beautiful, wonderful affirmation. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pull one off the top of the deck today. And we're going to go through a little exercise that's going to take these affirmations from being something that exists only in the ephemeral world of our imaginations to something which exists inside of our internal monologue repeatedly, and that we can see not just in ourselves, but in the people around us. So I'm going to ask you if you are the affirmation on the card. You're going to respond out loud, I am the affirmation on the card. And then we're going to write it down in the comments, and then we're going to really affirm it for each other. So thanks for being with me today. Let's have some fun and pull one right off the top where we can say that I am elevated. I am elevated. My awareness is always expanding as I rise to my highest good. So I am elevated. My awareness is always expanding as I rise to my highest good. Are you elevated? You are elevated. Your awareness is always expanding as you rise to your highest good. So one of the things that I have done in life is fly airplanes. And people think that it's a wing that makes the airplane fly, and that's an accurate thing to say. The wing really does make the airplane fly. But wings themselves really don't have any ability to control the aircraft. So aircraft, when they fly because they are being controlled about three axes, and that's how they go up into the sky. And so the wing, of course, helps it to stay up in the sky. Without a wing, it won't stay in the sky very long. But it is the thing on the back of the airplane. It's called the empennage, and the empennage contains a much, much smaller control surface, which is called an elevator. And an elevator is what makes the wing, is what makes the airplane fly. So when a pilot wants to make the airplane go up, they actually have to push they actually have to use a control input on the elevator. And what the elevator does, the elevator changes the angle of attack of the wing, and which is also known as its attitude. So the way that the airplane is relative to the horizon is called the attitude. And the elevator is just this tiny, tiny little thing. Now, airplanes can fly. In a catastrophic event, an airplane can still fly even if it's missing 25% of a wing. So if you're flying around in a 747, if you're going in a commercial airliner and all of a sudden a quarter of one of the wings falls off, man, it's going to be a bumpy ride, but that airplane will still fly. But if it loses even a little bit of the empennage, it can't fly. It can't be controlled. It becomes unstable, and we're going to be meeting the ground pretty quick. Now, one of the things that we understand, as pilots, is that altitude is life. So altitude gives us options. When we are elevated, we can see more, we can understand more, we have more options. There's more time between us and the ground in case we need to meet the ground in an unplanned way. Of course, pilots always want to meet the ground in a planned way. That's why we have runways and airports and whatnot. But in the unlikely event that we have to meet the ground in an unplanned way, boy, it sure is nice to have some altitude. Altitude is options. When I was doing flight training, one of the things that my instructor would do is I'd be flying along doing whatever it was that he asked me to do, and all of a sudden he'd just take his hand and move it to the throttle and just throttle the engines back to idle, which airplanes don't fly airplanes don't continue to fly for very long when the engines are at idle. And so my job was to very quickly make a plan to get that airplane safe on the ground and point to a field and line myself up with it and say, that's my choice, that's where we're going, we're going to go land in that field. And the more elevation that I had when this exercise occurred, the more options that I had. In fact, he did it really high at one point, and then we were close enough to the airfield that I said, I'm just gonna get on 121.5, the emergency frequency, and I'm gonna declare an emergency, and we're gonna go land right there at that field. And of course, I didn't actually key up that frequency, but I told him that's what I was gonna do. I told him that was my plan, and he's like, "Yep, looks like you can make it over there," and that's probably the best, the best circumstance. So life happens to us, and life happens in a way that's unexpected sometimes. And the more elevation that we have, the more options that we have. It works in piloting, but it also works in life. The more elevation that we have, the greater and more expanded that our perspective is, the greater ability that we have in order to make different choices, and the more options that we have. And so I am elevated today, and you are elevated. In fact, I'm writing that in the comments right now that I am elevated. And I think that as we go through life today, let's recognize that it's not what's happening to us that's important. It's our attitude toward what's happening to us that's important. What's happening around us is it's a thing that we only have very limited control of. But what we can control is our attitude toward it. And the more elevated that we are, the greater our ability to, or the greater our number of options. So thank you guys so very much for joining me for this wake up call. I appreciate all of you. Y'all are wonderful. I know that there's several who join me every single morning live. So thank you for that. That's just so humbling for me. If you need a particular affirmation, I have them all linked on my YouTube channel, which is in the video description. So you guys can go on over there and find the affirmation that you need for today. I've gone through this deck of cards once already, and I'm working on going through it again. And so I really appreciate everybody who attends these. So thank you very much. Aloha from paradise.